So a lot of people like to order the MagnaHelix gauge with their roaster because it allows you to see the real, true, actual airflow that's going through the drum of the roaster at any given time. And there's a number of reasons why this is really beneficial. It gives you indications if you're having issues beyond the roaster, such as in your exhaust system, where it begins to change perhaps because something's preventing the air from freely flowing through, or your positive pressures being affected. So when you get this, it's going to basically be three parts. Most of the time it's going to be connected already to the bracket, and that bracket goes right here in the back. I'll show you in a minute, there's two pre-drilled bolts, and then there's a silicone tube that attaches to the back of the gauge and then plugs into the neck of the roaster, which I'll show you in just a minute where these parts are and how easy it is to hook up. Okay, you can see these two bolts right here, which you use the hex key, the metric hex key, to loosen those, and then this just goes right over back in there with the bolts put back in. And then I'll show you in the front. Basically, this tube is just ran alongside the roaster, and it's silicone, so it's not going to melt. And then it'll plug into the neck of the roaster, which I'll show you where that connection is. Since I had limited space on the other roaster, I'm going to show you on this roaster. So once that MagnaHelix gauge is installed, you'll see there's a cap here that you use a wrench to remove, and then you put this new little connection in. And when you do that, it only needs to screw in a couple of turns. It doesn't need to go in all the way. In fact, it won't go in all the way. So just turn it a couple turns, because all you're really trying to do is get it to be airtight in the neck of the roaster, and then you connect that silicone tube back up. So I'm going to show you in a minute after it's been completed on the roaster. We're going to do a roast in today. So after you loosen that plug with a crescent wrench or what have you, then you can remove it, and then you can put in the other connector. So you can pretty much put that in by hand, and then just give it a couple turns. You don't want to try to over tighten this, just a couple of turns so that it's nice and secure in there, and then run this along the back and it will attach to the MagnaHelix gauge. So using a metric hex key on the BC2, probably on the BC1 too. Also, it uses a 2.5 millimeter hex key. Remove those two little bolts. Then, I'm not good at doing this left-handed, so bear with me. And then just install the bracket with your MagnaHelix gauge pointing in the direction of the control panel, so you can be viewing it while you are roasting coffee. So once you get that gauge nice and secure on there, just push the silicone tube in there, and now you're ready to go. One thing to keep an eye on is once you've installed this gauge, if you notice the needle is like sitting up on a number like 5, 10 or whatever, there's a little teeny adjustment screw down here that allows you to calibrate it. So you want to turn it back to 0 so that you're actually getting the true airflow as it goes through the roaster. And just to show you, let's turn on our power. We've got the fan, of course, turned up to 100. I'm going to show you. We've got the gauge basically closed, and it appears that our Magnehelic gauge is a little bit. There's always some air running through the gauge, even when it's on zero. I mean, running through the manual dial damper, and that's so that to protect you from cutting all airflow off on a gas roaster, which would cause the flames to backflash. But you may need to adjust that down. In this case, it looks like I could use adjusting it down just a little bit. So as you can see, using a flathead small screwdriver, I was able to adjust it down to zero. Now, to test it, when I've got it hooked up, and we'll go into more detail later about how the gauge will show different amounts depending on a number of factors, how your exhaust is set up, also how much beans are in the drum, how full the drum is, and how free airflow flows through it. But just to give it a quick test, going from zero on my manual dial damper, I'm turning it up. It's now on 3. You know, now, which it's all the way up. But you're going to see there's a difference when you have it full of beans. But you can see it's allowing me to monitor my airflow as I continue my roasting.